we're dealing with my favorite type of data for this challenge, Pokemon data. So let's take a look at our inputs. So we have our Pokemon input, and this is just listing out every single different Pokemon. But as we know from the challenge, we're only actually interested in up to generation 3, which is up to number 386. And another issue is that we have 2 lines for some Pokemon rather than 1 Pokemon on each line because of this type, the way that the type is kind of transposed to have a line per type. So we'll need to sort that out too. So let's start off by getting that filtered down to just 386 Pokemon. So our number field here is actually a string at the moment, if you see, and we want to convert that into a number. But we can't just do that by going to our drop down and changing it to a number because there are leading spaces in a lot of these numbers. So Tableau Prep doesn't like that. It doesn't, you're telling it to change straight into a number, but it's starting with the space. How does it do that? It kind of just gives you a null instead of a number. So we're duplicating the field, but we're trimming the spaces in our drop down here to go clean. It's not letting me do it because it's a number now already. To go clean and trim spaces. And then we transform it into a number, and then we can do just our normal kind of filter calculation just to say that we want the number to be less than or equal to 386. Then we've also got the issue of mega evolutions to filter out because they came in a later generation, and I'll be honest, I don't really understand how they work properly. So we can either do that by filtering out from our string number field anything that has a decimal point, because mega evolutions have decimal points associated with them, or we can just filter out from our name any name that starts with mega. So that's a couple of different ways to get to our correct number of rows. But you'll notice we have 386 Pokemon, but 568 rows because of that type level of detail. So we're just going to use an aggregate step to group by every single field apart from our type field, and we're also leaving behind that numeric number field because we don't really need it going forwards. And now we have our 386 rows. So now we're ready to bring in our evolution dataset. So our evolution dataset is giving us Pokemon, each row is a Pokemon that evolves from and to another Pokemon with the sort of conditions and ways that they evolve. Most Pokemon evolve by reaching a certain level, but then there are other ways such as trading, such as items, many different ways that Pokemon can evolve. But the way that we need to be careful in this dataset is that we have some Pokemon in here who are not from generation 3. So we need to be careful that we're not including those back into our dataset at any point. I guess that we could have done this joining before we filtered our dataset and filtered it at the end, but generally it's kind of better practice to filter first and then join so that we're not exploding our dataset. But all roads lead to Rome. So first of all, we're going to bring in our evolving to field, and the way that we do that is by joining our name to evolving from. That will then give us the evolving to column. So we are doing a left join here so that we include all the Pokemon even if they don't evolve, because not every Pokemon does. And we can see that we've got those extra fields now in our dataset. However, we've got an issue, as I was mentioning there. If I find for you Snorunt, then I'll tell you this information that you may not know, that Snorunt up to Gen 3 only evolves into Glalie, whereas post Gen 3 it also has another evolution possible, which is Frostlass. So we're wanting to exclude that from our dataset. And how do we go about that? Well, we're basically joining this join step, picking it up and joining it back to our aggregate here. Whoa, I can't put that down now. So that's how we create that join here. And we're joining our evolving to of our green join here back to the name. And by doing this, we're making sure that anything that is in the evolving to section is one of those Pokemon that has numbers 1 to 386. So we can see the type of Pokemon that's getting excluded: Ambipom, Frostlass, Gallade. These are all right. They are definitely not Pokemon that existed pre-Gen 3. So that's good. We're excluding some of those Pokemon that we don't want to be included in our dataset going forwards. But now, again, we have only 208 rows, so we need to join that our dataset back into itself to get our evolving 2 field with everything, with all the Pokemon that we want to be in there, whether they evolve or not. So that's quite a long way of doing that, but it works. So phew, we've got the achievement here of getting the evolving 2 field added on without adding on those extra pesky Pokemon. Now we can focus on adding in our evolving from field. So we're just joining our evolution dataset again onto our join here, using a left join again, and we're doing this time the clause our name is equal to evolving 2. So that will give us our evolving from field. So for Pokemon that have a pre-evolved form, they now have that in the same row in their dataset. Let's take a look at, for example, if I can find a quick one to show you. Let's try and find for you Venusaur. Or let's find Ivysaur actually. That might work better. So I'll click on Ivysaur. And now we have for Ivysaur, we have that it evolves from a Bulbasaur and evolves to a Venusaur. So that's all now in one line, which is really useful for us to be able to reference. Now to make our evolution group, we know that, for example, for Ivysaur, this evolving from field is going to tell us what our evolution group is. It's going to be a Bulbasaur. For Bulbasaur, if I find that for you, then we can see that, okay, if we used our evolving from field, Bulbasaur doesn't evolve from anything. We want Bulbasaur to be the name. So maybe if the evolving from field is null, if it's the first one in the evolution line, then that should be the name of the evolution group. Okay, that works. But then what about Venusaur, the final evolution? How are we going to get that information through about Bulbasaur? Because nothing in its line, in its row at the moment, is telling us, linking us to Bulbasaur. So now we're going to bring in information about our first evolution. So how do we get to that? So we could just join our evolving from field, which is Ivysaur, onto the name field so that we get information about Bulbasaur in our first line. So let's just see that. So we're looking at joining evolving from our green step here to evolving to from our evolution dataset. And that means that we now have this extra field called first evolution. And if I click on Bulbasaur here, then we'll see that is now linking to Venusaur. So you'll notice that we have 460 rows at the moment. We're just going to do a bit of deduplication, literally just including all the fields here and grouping by them. And then we can see we get down to 397 rows. Why isn't that 386? Well, that's because certain Pokemon, such as Eevee, have multiple different evolutions. So they're going to add on a few rows to our dataset. But finally, we're ready to write that calculation to make our evolution group. And we're using that logic. So think about it in terms of the Bulbasaur. So if our evolving from is null, then we're using the name. So that was our Bulbasaur. It's our first evolution. Therefore, it doesn't have anything before it. So therefore, we name our evolution group Bulbasaur. And then we're looking at our first evolution field, that one that we just created there for the final stage evolution Pokemon. And if that is not null, if there's a value in there, then that will be the name of our evolution group. Otherwise, in all other cases, it is what the Pokemon evolved from. So in Ivysaur's case, it evolved from a Bulbasaur. That is the name of the evolution group. And there we have it. Every Pokemon now has been labelled with an evolution group. And we can sort of double check it by clicking on them and seeing if that makes sense. If it looks like they link together from our evolving from, evolving to, and first evolution, which definitely all those names are appearing. So phew, we've done a good job here. And that's basically all that I wanted to do with this challenge. So I hope that you enjoyed it, and thanks very much for watching.